What's up, 10th graders? Happy Thursday. Hopefully the weather is beautiful today. Let's get started with week 9, lesson 42. But first, the joke of the day. Why did the invisible man turn down the job offer? He couldn't see himself doing it. So as you know, we are on day 4 of week 9. The video you should be watching right now is called ELA G10W9L42. The text, of course, is My Possessions, Myself. And today you're actually going to plan and design a research study, which I'm really excited for. When you get down to the lesson itself, make sure you read the materials box so you can remind yourself of all the things you need for today. The learning target for today is, I can plan and design a research study that explores how my family and friends connect personal possessions to their definition of self. So today you're actually going to plan and design a research study where you engage in the exact same process that happened in our text, but with someone that is in your family or one of your friends, and you're going to actually be able to determine like how they see their possessions in relation to their definition of self. Should be pretty interesting. Let's quickly discuss the read, think, talk, write protocol for today. For the read section, you're going to reread paragraphs 5 to 7 of the text, but you're going to focus specifically on the research study. Those paragraphs introduce the research study and tell you the details of the research study. But on your note catcher, you're going to take notes to help you fully understand all the components of the research study, but you're going to use the guided questions on your notes to guide your thinking and to make sure you're capturing all the necessary information. For the think section, you're going to think about the following questions. If I were to conduct this research study on a family member or friend, who would I choose and why? Who is my second choice and why? So you basically have to think about like who in your family or in your group of friends would be someone that would be interesting and someone that would be willing to participate in this research study. Who would that be, that person, your first choice, and then who would your second choice be and why? And then when you go to the note catcher, you'll see that everything I just talked about is on the note catcher, and there's a spot for you to write down all of your answers. For the talk section today, you're going to reach out to the family member or friend that you chose for your first choice and briefly explain to them the purpose of the research study, but don't give away too many details. You don't want them to know all the details yet, because if they participate in the research study, then they may have an idea of what they're going to be asked, and that could skew the data. Ask them if they're interested in participating with you. If they do not agree, reach out to your second choice. And then you're going to keep asking people until you find someone that agrees. So hopefully your first choice agrees to participate in the research study. If not, hopefully your second choice does. But if neither of those two people agree, keep asking people until you find someone to participate with you. Tell them it's not going to be like a hard task or time consuming. It's really going to be pretty quick, and tell them it's for school. So that'll probably increase the chances that they'll help you with it. For the writing section, you're going to brainstorm a list of items that fit into the 4 categories of possessions. Keep the items general. So you'll see on the note catcher, the 4 different categories from the research study in the text are listed here: body and body parts, objects, places and time periods, and persons and pets. And you have to brainstorm at least 8 things from each category, but keep them general. You don't want to make them too specific. For the closing today, you're going to review your brainstorming list and make sure none of the items listed are too specific to the person you are interviewing. For example, if you decide to interview your mom, and on the list you put something that you know she is for sure going to say is connected to herself because it's like very personal to her life, you may want to take it off, because you don't want to skew the data and only have items on the list that are definitely going to connect to your person's idea of self, or definitely won't connect to your person's idea of self. So you got to make sure your list, after you've solidified the person and after you brainstorm, you have to make sure your list is not too specific. And then, as always, you're going to read a book for 20 minutes and document your reading on the reading log. Okay, so the quick model today is going to be around understanding the research study and all the details of it. I just wanted to remind you all real quick what exactly you have to do in the lesson itself to understand the research study, and that really lives in the read section of the read, think, talk, write protocol. So you have to reread paragraphs 5 through 7, because those are the paragraphs that truly introduce the research study and give you all the details of it. And just focus on the research study. Don't focus on anything else, just the research study. And then you're going to take notes about the research study using the guiding questions provided for support on your note catcher. And that's right here. So you'll see there are questions that we listed here that are going to really help you pull out the most relevant information of the research study. At the end of today, it's very, very, very important you understand the ins and outs of the study, because you're going to recreate the study tomorrow with the person you chose or the person that agreed to participate in this research study. So this note catcher and these guiding questions will really help you make sense of the most important details of the research study. And our model today is going to be around this part of the note catcher. I'm going to actually help you all unpack the important parts of the research study. I am going to model for you part of the writing section today, but not the entire part. And this will happen after we finish the note catcher for the reading part I just mentioned. But for the writing section, you have to brainstorm a list of items that fit into the 4 categories of possessions and keep the items general. So after we go through the key details of the research study, I will sort of help you brainstorm just a few things in each of these categories, because these items are very important when conducting your research study, to make sure the research study actually happens the way it's supposed to happen, and you get meaningful data from it. Okay, let's get started. I just took everything from the note catcher and put it in a separate table just because the formatting is off, but it's the same as information. We're going to read paragraphs 5 through 7 together, and after we read, I'm going to go back to the table and help you all in answering these 4 major questions to pull out the relevant details of the research study. Let's get started. We generally include 4 types of possessions in our personal sense of self: body and body parts, objects, places and time periods, persons and pets. Body parts are normally so well integrated into our identities that we think of them as me rather than merely mine. But several studies have shown that body parts vary widely in their importance to us. Recently, doctoral student Mark Austin and I gave 248 adults a group of cards, each of which listed a single item in one of the 4 categories: body parts such as kidneys, hearts, and knees, objects such as a favorite dessert or the contents, other than money, of your wallet, places and times such as a favorite city or time of life, and particular people or pets. We asked people to put the 96 cards into 2 piles, things they considered self and non-self. They then sorted each of these into 2 piles representing a little or lot of self or non-self. We then gave each pile a self score, 1, 2, 3, 4, and calculated average scores for each card. This gave us a rating of how central each item was to the sense of identity. Okay, so there's a lot there, but these 4 guiding questions can really help us make sense of just the key details of the research study. Let's start with the first question. What are the 4 types of possessions in our personal sense of self? And you'll see this in the writing section today with the list you have to brainstorm. We have body and body parts, objects, places and time periods, and persons and pets. Next question. What are some examples of each of the 4 types of possessions? Paragraph 6 gives you examples. I'm going to list them here. For body and body parts, the examples listed are kidneys, hearts, and knees. For objects, the examples are favorite dessert or contents of a wallet other than money. For places and time periods, the examples are favorite city or time of life. And for persons and pets, the examples are particular people or pets. So it could be, a particular person like mom, dad, or a pet, dog, cat. Next question. What are the first 2 piles that participants sort cards into? So after, you have these 96 cards with different examples of the 4 types of possessions. What are the first 2 piles that people have to sort cards into? Pile 1 is self and pile 2 is non-self. So they have to take all of these items like kidney, heart, mom, dad, and sort them into pile 1, which is self, and pile 2, which is non-self. So how much is this specific item connected to my idea of self? How much of this item is connected to my idea of non-self? If it's not connected to self, it's probably in the non-self category. And then after they sorted into the first 2 piles, what are the second 2 piles to sort cards into? So we have the self and non-self pile. Then from there, you're going to have 4 piles total, because each of these piles now have to be sorted into 2 more piles. And what are they? Pile 1 is a little of self or non-self, and pile 2 is a lot of self or non-self. So for example, if you put your pet cat in the non-self category, like your cat does not have to do, and by you I mean the person you're interviewing, if cat had nothing to do with their idea of self, they then have to figure out, is cat like a little of non-self or is it a lot of non-self? I would imagine it would be like a lot of non-self if they've never had a cat before, because like it's clearly not going to connect to their identity. But maybe it's a little of non-self because maybe they had a cat growing up and they loved it, but they don't have one now. So it's either a lot of non-self or a little of non-self. But on the other hand, let's say the person you interview or engage in the research study with puts mom in the self category because their mom is very important to them. They then have to figure out, is their mom a lot of self? Like, does their mom mean a lot to them into their idea of self, or just a little to their idea of self? So if their mom is like the most important person in their life, I imagine they would put a lot of self. But if it's if their mom is important to them, but they don't really see them as a part of who they are, they may put a little of self. So it gets a little tricky here because you have 2 piles to start, but now each of those 2 piles are going to have 2 more piles. So you'll end up having 4 piles at the end, but you'll still have 2 general categories. You'll have the self and non-self categories, but you'll also have like a little and lot of each of those. So you'll have 4 piles total. And if this is confusing to you, just reread paragraphs 5 through 7 again, specifically paragraph 7, and it'll make sense. But hopefully watching this video will help you make sense of it too. Okay, for the writing section today, you have to brainstorm items for each of these 4 major categories. If you remember the second question from the note catcher that we just went over, I already asked you to come up with examples from the text. So I'm going to put these examples in the note catcher here in the writing section, and I'm going to also give you like one more example of each category, and I think that'll be a good starting place for you when you're brainstorming your own list of items. So for body and body parts, the text gave us 3 examples: kidney, heart, and knee. You can feel free to use those. For objects, the text said favorite dessert or contents of wallet other than money. So I said ice cream, which is my favorite dessert, and driver's license. So that's in my wallet and it's not money. Places and time periods, they said favorite city or time of life. I said Detroit, that's my favorite city. And time of life, I said living in Oklahoma because there was a 5-year period where I lived in Oklahoma. And persons and pets, they said particular people or pets. I said brother, Justin, and dog, Truman. That was my dog's no longer living, but when my dog was alive, I had him for 15 years. His name was Truman. He was a big part of my life. Now I'm going to give you one more example of each. For body and body parts, I said eyes. That's a pretty generic body part that, for the most part, all of us have. Objects, I said car. For the most part, people have cars. This would be an example of if you know you're interviewing someone who doesn't have a car, then you wouldn't put car there because clearly that's going to lead them on to put non-self if they never had a car or don't own one currently. High school is another time period that everyone goes through for the most part, and I put Barack Obama as a person because I don't know him personally, but he's still a person. And so in the real research study, they included people that were real people, but weren't necessarily family members per se. And so I put brother Justin and dog Truman because those are the names of my my dog and my brother. But if you don't want to lead the research on, you don't have to put the names of people. You can just put brother or dog. I'd actually recommend doing that. You want to make sure they are objects that are going to be relatable because, again, you don't want to put, for example, car if they never owned a car before. But you don't want to put the names of people and just only include things on the list that the people are going to connect with. You have to make it pretty even across the board. So just be very intentional about your list that you create. Hopefully you probably know the person that you selected pretty well. So that means that you hopefully won't use, your relationship with them to skew the data and put very specific things on here, or only put things that they're going to connect with, or not you're putting things on here that they won't connect with at all. Just try to keep it pretty generic. I would also go to Google if you're struggling to identify things. Maybe just type in body parts and see what comes up, and whatever comes up, put it on the list here. And think about your own life too. What are some time periods that you can reflect back on? I know you're only 15, 16, but you could talk about childhood or another moment in your life that is has been important to you that may be important to your person that you're researching too. So keep the list generic. Don't make it too specific, but also don't make it so generic that the person won't connect with it. The learning target for tomorrow is I can conduct a research study that explores the concept of self and draw conclusions from my research. So tomorrow is the main event. You're going to actually conduct the research study. You're going to take all the pre-work you completed today and put it to use and engage in the research study with the person you selected. And then after you're done, you're going to draw conclusions from your research. I think it'll be pretty interesting. I think you'll enjoy it. Thank you so much for learning with me today. I really appreciate it. It's always a lot of fun. A few quick reminders before I go. Number 1, don't forget to talk about your lesson with someone. Number 2, read 20 minutes and complete a reading log entry. The reading log is at the front of your packet. And number 3, practice reading fluency using the first or second page of your weekly reading, and you can go back to the front of the packet to remind yourself what you have to do for reading fluency. As always, email your teacher for support. If you have any questions, they are your first line of defense. Thank you so much for your time today, and remember, keep learning.